It's day 3 of the Mining Indaba underway in Cape Town, and key stakeholders have gathered to discuss the future of mining in Africa. And we caught up with Eddie Grieve, who is Senior Manager for Listings and Business Development on the Australian Securities Exchange, to find out how much interest there's been from African companies to list in Australia.
Well, I think the best indication is the number of companies that currently have projects in Africa. And we now have over 200 companies on our exchange whose principal project is in Africa. And the other indication is the level of capital raising that has taken place to fund projects in Africa. And over the last 3 years, we've had over $6 billion raised, Australian dollars, which is equivalent to the US dollar, yeah. Raised on our market to fund African projects. So it's certainly, in terms of our mining sector, and certainly in terms of the geographical location, this is probably a major part of our resource business.
Yeah. What kind of trend have you seen? Have we been seeing that interest growing over the past few years? We do know that last year was a very difficult time, particularly for the African continent, but we do know, of course, particularly South Africa itself, because we did see the issues around Marikana and all the violence and the strikes, etc., etc.
Yeah, look, there's no doubt it grew dramatically from about 2006 onwards, right. And last year was probably the worst year overall anyway in terms of capital raising on our market in 12 years. So it was probably no
on
worse
the whole market.
The whole market, and you know that was shown as much for companies involved in Africa as anywhere else.
Yeah, yeah. So, and when you look at the pipeline now, what are you seeing? Is there activity? Are people beginning to ask questions again? Are people beginning to knock on your door and say, hello, I'd like to come and see if I can raise some capital? Let's talk about Africa. Yeah.
Now look, I think we're seeing a dramatic improvement in the environment at the moment. We'll certainly in the early stages of it. We've seen improvements in commodity prices at the end of last year, and we had a very, very successful 4 or 5 weeks, just over the last 4 or 5 weeks in terms of our market, with day on day improvements in market conditions. So we think things are definitely improving, and there's a lot more appetite generally amongst investors to invest back in the market. As for Africa, I think that same optimism will flow for Africa as it will anywhere else.
Yeah. Are there any specific areas where the interest is growing, like for instance gold? We know, of course, platinum, you have to be talking about Africa, and perhaps iron ore again. We know that there are sports that are beginning to come up both in the south as well as in the north.
No, look, I don't think so. No, not any particular commodity, no, that we're seeing.
And what message do you bring to a gathering like this of mining executives because you interact with the companies that raise capital to want to come here?
The message we have is that we're a major exchange globally. We are very well connected into Asia because we're in that region, and of course Asia is the fastest growing region in the world. So the message we bring is that we can provide a capital raising platform for projects all around the world, including obviously Africa being a major place for commodities, with funding from all over the world, but in particular from Asia.
Do you have any specific targets for new listings for the African continent for 2013, 2014?
No, not particularly. We just hope that it's going to be a good year. I mean, we hope to see a return to the sort of conditions we had pre the last 12 months.